Hi, Tamara. I'm the one that spoke to you on the phone yesterday.
Really? Hmm, I don't
Uh,
remember that.
at least unless you're a different, no, maybe you're,
Tamara? That could be.
are you a limb different individual yourself?
Nope.
Okay, then you're not the one I spoke to. There, curious enough, I spoke to another Tamara yesterday who wanted to get involved, and I invited her to join one of these meetings. So I was
Yeah, no, I connected with Sarah, but no, I didn't recall nothing.
wonderful. Okay, well, good to have you anyway, and welcome, Terry, and good morning, Morgan and Jonathan. Good to have all of you. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. We'll let others join in. Hey, John. John, you there? You're muted and your camera's off.
Yeah, um,
There you are.
there's this new okay when a meeting is being recorded, which prevents you from unmuting yourself. And it keeps showing up in different locations. So anyway,
So I'm curious, you've been using Fathom. Have you tried the AI companion and AI summary in Zoom?
I haven't been able to get them to do anything. Have you?
Yeah, it does a pretty decent job. I was curious how it compares to what you're using, but yeah, I mean, we can
I'm
try it
curious
here.
too. Maybe you can help me get that set up at 1 o'clock also.
Well, I just started it for this meeting, so we'll get an AI
Oh,
summary.
cool.
It'll probably go to you because you're the meeting host or meeting owner.
Interesting. Well, that suggests that I have enabled it successfully. That's good.
Yeah, it's in the toolbar. All right, well, I guess we can get started. Hopefully we'll get one or two more, but I'm glad to see that we have some of the key folks already today. So I think where we left off was um start. Okay. Where we left off was talking about, essentially this is all about how are we going to make use of the funding. We've got $100,000. We got to make good use of it. We've got to be able to show that we put it to good use, had an impact. And so we talked about a number of different ways that we might put that money to use. I think the first and probably the top priority on our list is getting this new website going that has some matching capability that would essentially replace e-NABLE Web Central and provide for a new landing page to make it easier for people to learn about what e-NABLE is, what we do, how they can get, the resources they need or how they can get involved, and basically just make it easier for them to get to where they need to go. Because right now people are getting confused. It's hard to find what they're looking for. We just want to present things in a better way. We really like the website that e-NABLE France built, and we want to build off of that and basically do a version of that that's a little bit more oriented towards first an English speaking audience, but then rolling out additional languages and expanding on that as we go. Doing the same kind of matching that they set up on their site, which is using the Google Maps API, basically putting pins on a map and then having designated volunteers that would sort of connect volunteers with people seeking devices. Yeah, John.
Not to interrupt, but yeah, so when you finish, no, okay, here we go. I can't screen share because we haven't fixed that yet.
Oh, I could do that. Okay.
Host disabled participant. I'm the host.
No, I'm the host now, and it's
Okay.
enabled for you. You can share now.
All right, okay. Um, at a high level, I'd like to see whether we all agree about this. We're involved in strategic planning. We're trying to figure out how to spend, and I think that means who gets paid or hired in part. Um, because I think we need more uh, responsible hands on deck. The projects that we're pursuing, I think, are the website, as you said. And then I think there are the following high level issues that we want to talk about. And I guess I should add to this the implicit one, which is the using the e-NABLE fund. There's also the question, I heard you mention it today, as to whether it is our mission to spend all of this money this year, or whether we should resolve to reserve some of the money for next year until we have other grants coming in.
Yeah.
I don't think that's uh, a bad thing at all. And I don't think Arrow would consider it a bad thing either.
Yeah, as long as we can show good results from what we have used and we are using it responsibly, I don't think that would be a problem. You're right.
Okay. So on this one, we have a proposal, which Madison's not here today, but I think it's about to be put to a vote. Sarah can update us as to whether it's been updated and turned on as a vote. When it is, we should market it into the hub, because not everyone is monitoring Lumio.
Right.
With regard to storytelling and documentation, we're not doing anything with, well, actually we are. Sarah is going to get back to us with regard to her sort of brief, organizational brief about e-NABLE.
Yep.
And other kinds of things. With regard to member mobilization, I don't think we really have a problem, but I'll point out that we don't have a plan. But there are two things we might want to consider. One is we could revive e-NABLECon as a really interesting way of using some of the money that we now have and to try to do it right. Again, that would require that we bring on some staffing to do it, but it might not be a bad occasion. Indeed, with the kind of money we now have, we might want to think about an international e-NABLECon where some of the money actually brings people like Thierry into a room with us, or takes some of us into a central location, maybe in Europe, where we could also have some of our Middle Eastern chapters participating.
Yep.
Okay, that's my overview. I just wanted to share it because
Okay.
that's how I see the big
Well,
picture.
so I'm going to take screen shine back, because I have, we're mostly in alignment, but you stop your sharing. There we go. There's a lot of possibilities that we discussed, including the ones that you listed, but we specifically started to zero in on budgeting potential for three possible project efforts. So I want to kind of focus us in on that for right now. The first one is this new website that I was talking about, getting that launched. And the reason I was focusing on that as a top priority is because several of these other efforts depend on that. We need to have somewhere to direct people to. So the second one that we talked about was outreach coordinator, and that goes to the proposal that it's Madison? Is that the name?
Yes.
Okay. The proposal that Madison has running, or at least the discussion. We'll talk about whether it's moved on to a proposal. And we talked about somewhere in the neighborhood of a $12,000 budget for that based upon the hours that she was thinking. And that goes to John's point of outreach and scope expansion. We also talked about digital marketing and PR. And I think this is a really critical element because for years now, we've seen that we have a huge imbalance between, on the one hand, we have all these volunteers. We've got a huge surplus of volunteers standing by with 3D printers saying, I want to help someone. I want to help someone. And we have a very small pool on the other side of people actually saying, I need a device. And that is because essentially we haven't done a good job of getting the word out to those people. I mean, clearly there are plenty of people out there in need. They just don't know about e-NABLE. And so I think it's very important that we do some actual digital marketing and PR. And I think we talked last time about, I think the right way to do that is to hire an agency, somebody that does this professionally. They know what they're doing. They can put a program together. They can execute on it for us on a month-to-month basis. We will pay them for their time. And I think that would be a very worthwhile investment because that's going to start to bring those people in to start to get us back into balance. That'll help to get our members, our volunteers more engaged. If they're engaged in cases, they're more likely to be able to be willing to engage on other projects and efforts because they're going to be more plugged into the community, et cetera. So all these things seem to tie together to me, but it all depends on first and foremost getting this website and matching platform up and running. Now, when we talked last time, we had talked about the possibility of that being in the range of a $10,000 to $20,000 budget. Morgan did some work on putting together a draft for a proposal for this, and I did some further work on it. I'd like to spend some time on this together today. So, Morgan, I apologize. I had hoped to have some time for you and I to connect before this. I didn't have a chance to do that, so I don't know if you've had a chance to even see some of the edits that I made here.
My life's been a little crazy and have not had time to do much of anything lately.
No
So
problem. So essentially, I fleshed out the overview a little bit so that essentially what we're talking about is the need to present the community in a clearer way and help people to find the way to the resources that they need. Talking about the fact that this new site will also provide the matching functionality to let us connect volunteers with people seeking devices. It'll use a simplified mechanism for matching. People will just fill out a form either to request a device or to help out as a volunteer. That'll drop pins onto a map, and then designated volunteers will manually match each requester with a nearby volunteer. And then that volunteer will just work directly with the client via email to coordinate device delivery, and will then just report status back to the matching team so that we can in some way track the status of cases. That might just be in a spreadsheet for now, or we might plug that into the database. That's yet to be determined, but it's going to be very basic for now for phase one in terms of actually tracking cases and doing any kind of case management. It's really all about matching in the beginning, and we're just going to rely on the volunteers to handle their cases for now. In later phases, we'll add in that case management and reporting functionality. So we will have a database involved here, and we can build on that over time. So we will be able to actually track the status of cases, report on how cases are going, how long is it taking to get cases done, what types of devices are being used, which regions are getting the most attention, et cetera, et cetera. The website will be very similar to the one that e-NABLE France created. We'll use their code as a starting point. In phase one, our task will be to translate the French site into English, update all the content so it kind of represents the e-NABLE community as a whole in a clear manner, getting people to the resources they need. We'll build out that matching platform using Google Maps API, getting the keys in there that we need and making sure that's working right. We might have to do some updating and rebuilding of the forms associated with that. And we do want to set up a basic database on the back end. We're not going to do a whole lot with it, but just when people submit those forms, we'll dump the results into the database so at least we can build off of that later. In phase two, we would get into translation. And in phase two, we will translate all the content into the top 6 languages that we'll identify, whatever those are. I can only assume we're going to be talking about, Spanish and German and French and Chinese and I don't know what else, but we'll identify those most popular languages. We'll get those translations done, heavily relying on volunteers making use of AI tools to do the initial translation, and then hopefully finding native speakers to help us tweak it from there. But it's mostly going to be copy and pasting into AI translation tools for efficiency in the beginning. Phase 3 then is going to need additional planning and estimation, and we're not trying to detail that out here in this proposal. We're just saying, once we get the platform up and we've got phase 1 done, and maybe even phase 2, because that should go pretty quickly, then we can get feedback from the community. What do we need to add on now? What would you like to see improved upon? What further enhancements do you think are needed? We'll maybe get some polling going. We'll find out what we need to do next. And then we'll plan out that next phase. It might be, things like adding additional languages. It might be expanding on the case management functionality. it might be incorporating elements from the hub, like the badging or, things like that, chapter management. I don't know. That's something that we'll query the community on, and we're not even going to try to define that for now. So to summarize, phase one, translate from French to English, create the matching platform using the Google Maps API, implement the forms for requesting a device and for volunteering, and then store the data from those forms in a database. Phase two, translate all the website content into the top 6 languages. Phase three, basically to be determined, additional functionality as guided by the community. A little note here about expected results and impact that I didn't really adjust much. This is where I need everyone's input. I took a wild guess here. Estimate of work effort involved. I guessed approximately 300 hours of work distributed across a team of 5 people to start with, including 3 volunteers and 2 paid contractors. And I actually have to update that because we have now 4 volunteers. Let me adjust that right now. 4 volunteers, so 6 people. What I'm thinking is that it would be 300 hours of work across those people, and I'll get to those details below. Phase two, I'm thinking 50 to 100 hours of work, hopefully handled by volunteers, because again, it's a lot of copy and pasting and translating using tools that are available, plus hopefully some native speakers helping to tweak those translations. Timeline, we're hoping to get phase one up and running within 2 months. I think it's really important that we move quickly on this because so many other efforts depend upon having a place to start sending people. Even if phase two isn't done yet, and certainly phase three won't be done, at least we'll have a really good site. And since right now, all of our grant efforts going after grants are being handled primarily here in the US, having an English-oriented site is, I think, sufficient to get us started. And then we'll continue to build out those other languages as we proceed on those other lines. So in terms of the
Those estimates do sound pretty spot on.
Well, and here's how I'm looking at that. Right now, I'm actually very pleased with volunteers that have come forward. Obviously, you've offered to help as project manager role, Morgan. We also have Azure, who's a backend developer as well as a front-end developer. He's familiar with database stuff and PHP and WordPress. But also both Todd Brown, is Todd here today? I don't think so. And Jonathan, who is here today, have both offered to help enthusiastically, which I was thrilled to see. And I put down some possible areas they could help with. This is by no means fixed. Jonathan, there might very well be other areas you can help with, but at the very least, I know you can help us with those translation efforts. And that's going to be, by the way, the translation stuff is part of phase one, not just phase two, because remember, we're starting with a whole bunch of content that's in French that we need to, even on the admin side, like the admin interface and screens and everything on the WordPress admin are in French, and that's all embedded throughout the code. So we actually have to download the theme code and go through the code and translate those bits and pieces into English so that we actually have the interface in English. So there's things like that you could definitely help us with.
And Adam had said he could help me with the project management, just like
Who did?
here and there. Adam.
Adams did?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Adam Jennings, we'll say assistant project manager.
We'll probably like pass it off back and forth to each other because
Okay.
I'm now in the job search. So
we're up to a team of 7 people, 5 volunteers and 2 paid contractors. And so essentially what I'm thinking is that whatever volunteers we can get, I would love to see us add more volunteers to this list. You know, if other people say, hey, I want to help, wonderful. Because the more volunteers we get, the less we have to go to paid contractors. But let's assume we're going to need some additional help just because we want to get this done quickly and all of our volunteers have day jobs. So just as a starting point, I was thinking we go and hire 2 paid contractors, figure they're going to work about 100 hours each at $25 an hour. Well, that's only $2,500. I mean, that's, we had talked about a $10,000 to $20,000 budget for this project. I can't even think of how we would spend that right now based on the number of volunteers that we have willing to help. So, but that's not a bad thing, right? If we can spend less, great, as long as we can get it done in our target, of a couple of months here. And so why did I say 5,000? Oh, I'm wrong here because it's 100 hours each. So that would be a $5,000 budget. That's right. So I was thinking $100 each, 2 contractors, making it 200 hours at $25, making it a $5,000 budget, which I think is quite reasonable for such an important project. So this is where I want to get some input. Thank you for bearing with me as I ran through all of my updates. Let me get your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts about the team that's laid out here? What are your thoughts about the number of hours, the budget, et cetera? This is where I need everyone's help.
I
Morgan, you
think
said you think it looks okay?
I think the hours look good. I think, I mean, given say we were to work on this full time, I gotta do quick math. You said 300 for the first one.
That's what I was guessing. So that means it would be, if we use the contractors to the extent I laid out, that means that about 100 hours would be distributed across the volunteer team and
Yeah.
200 hours across the two
So
contractors.
if you take that 200 divided by, say, the contractors work 40 hours a week, which would be aggressive, but hey, if that's what happens, ideally, that could just those 200 hours would happen in about 5 weeks, which I'd say realistically, you're gonna get that in those whole 300 hours in 8 weeks, like 2 to 3 months. So that kind of sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Just
I would very much like to push ourselves towards 2 months as
yeah,
opposed to three. I understand that may or may not end up happening, but I think that should be our goal just because of the fact that we need this to get those other initiatives going. John,
yeah.
thoughts?
Um, I think this is great, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. The risk that I see is that Morgan is a volunteer project manager. And that means that when something pressing comes along, it's going to fall back onto Jeremy, probably, um, who is also a volunteer, but somehow is the solution of last resort. I'm just
Well,
wondering whether we would have less risk if Morgan were able to be on the hook to set aside a certain number of paid hours in order
I
to
had the
ensure
same
that she
thought.
could be
Yeah.
on top of
I
it.
mean, well, I would appreciate that because my company just laid off everyone, so I'm
Okay.
currently
Well, I think that's very much worth exploring, especially given that, I mean, in our last discussion, we had talked about we had talked about this 10 to $20,000 kind of ballpark budget range, and everyone on the call seemed to feel pretty comfortable with that. And we certainly are, not even close to that. So I would be fully in favor of moving Morgan down to the paid contractors list.
And Morgan, did you just say that you were just laid off?
yeah, it's been a fun ride. Laid
Uh,
off and my apartment got mold everywhere, so we had to move out and all in 1 week. So that's what I was saying. Like my life's been a little crazy right
That
now.
sounds awful. I'm sorry to hear that, Margaret.
It's all right, fortunate enough that they're at least taking care of the mold and I'll be able to find a job. So
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not gonna solve all your woes, unfortunately. I know
it's pretty helpful.
I know that's not really a going rate for a good
Not
project
a
manager,
spaghetti, so it's a nice plus.
but, so that would bring us to 7,500 which is still, I think, very reasonable. Um, Thoughts?
I think that's great. Morgan, I think you should circulate your resume again. If you're in play, and as I indicated earlier, I think we could really use um, more hands accountably on deck. It seems like a good moment to just look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send it over.
Just to be fair, let me review my list of attending. Okay, so I don't have Todd here. I don't have Adam here. Jonathan, you're the only one I can look to today, but I just want to ask the question. I mean, we are looking at paying a number of people on this project. What is your comfort level of remaining in a volunteer capacity? Is your feeling that maybe we should look at having everyone on this project in a paid role? I mean, be honest with us here. How are you feeling? You're
You're
muted, Jonathan, I think. Oh, it doesn't show that you're muted. I'm just not getting any
not
audio.
muted, but you're not audible either.
Maybe check which mic you have selected in Zoom.
Now you're muted. Now you're not.
Oh. All right. Well, Jonathan's figuring out his audio. Feel free to type in chat too. If
While we're waiting for him, I wonder if Terry has any observations about the
I
way
was
this
just
is
going to
going.
go to Terry too, especially as somebody that's used paid contractors. I'd value your input on this, Terry.
Well, uh, I'm not very helpful here because it's so complicated to estimate.
It is. Have you had projects where it was a mix of paid people along with volunteers? Have you had that sort of a scenario?
No, not really.
Okay.
Uh,
So if
we
you're considering a project paid, you just say everyone working on that project is going to get paid.
yes, and honestly, to put in place e-NABLE France website, we first made a first draft that worked ish in WordPress using plugins and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we found a company that we hired to redevelop it from scratch and to add new functionality. So we really had one company we dealt with, and that's it.
I really would be in favor of that. I don't know about anybody else, but I mean, if we just say that everybody working on this project is going to be working at the same paid rate of 25 an hour, everyone logs their time, everyone gets paid 25 bucks an hour. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still talking about an effort of maybe 300 hours, even 400 hours. That puts, 400 hours puts us at a $10,000 budget, which I think is still very reasonable for a critical project like this. And it puts everyone on a level playing field.
So
I
just
like
from my
that.
experience, it's hard to say like this is going to take X amount of hours. I always
Yeah.
add, 1.25 the amount of time. Well, I don't add I add a quarter more amount, 25%. So something we should make sure that is clear is there's $400 worth of paid time. If you go over your SOL kind of situation, like we should
Yeah,
clarify
I,
what that
I
deal.
think you go by buckets here, right? And then once we're going over, you can go back to the community for another bucket if
Yeah, I
that's
mean, if
how
we
things
could
work.
potentially say we up this to 400 hours of paid work, and I'll update the rest of these notes. But let's say we do that. That gives us a $10,000 budget, and I think we could get that approved by the community. I would suggest as project manager, Morgan, one of your first responsibilities would be to get a meeting with all the people on the team, including finding the contractors, figure out who's going to do what, figure out what time each person has available, assign responsibilities, and you would allocate a certain number of hours to each person. Okay, you're approved for up to 50 hours. You're approved for up to, 100 hours. And you know that you've got a total of 400 hours to work with.
Yeah. So should I be going to these volunteers first for the contractors, or do you want me to find external contractors as well?
Well, I think that depends. Right now, the question is, can we, with this team that we have laid out here, yourself plus these volunteers, can we get the whole project done in a 2-month timeline? If the answer is yes, then no need to go to outside contractors. I
I'd be
don't know
about
the answer to that.
100 a person.
Say again?
I'd be about 100 a person if they're contracting and have day jobs.
Right. And
I'd
I,
say,
I think some will be less. Adam will not be able to put in that many hours.
oh yeah,
Ozzer
I
will
would say
probably
we
not.
should find some, like I'd say 2 more people.
Okay.
And I have people in mind that I can reach out to. I can reach out to my contacts in the tech
Right.
world.
And if we're
So I
treating this as a funded project where people who get involved have the opportunity to make some money, I think that's going to make it easier to find some people to help. John, you wanted to say
I would
something?
love to. Sorry, go ahead.
I think this is good. I think that Morgan, we should not simply allocate 50 hours worth of time to someone who says they can do 50 hours worth of time.
Oh no.
As you know, volunteers have complicated lives. They have other jobs, and their other jobs, especially if they have an existing full-time job, takes priority. So I think one of the responsibilities of the project manager, Morgan, will be to engage in a continuous process, maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly, in which you collect the work done by the various contractors, pay them, get them to estimate the time it took, arrange for them to be paid for the work they have done. And we use that for sort of continuous monitoring of whether the money is actually getting the job done. To the extent that it's not, and I have great admiration and appreciation for volunteers, but I know that they can get laid off or have mildew overcome their apartments. If they can't do it, we don't continue to pay them for the full amount we've allocated for them. We reach out to other contractors.
Right.
Having said that, I think it is a really nice principle to start by trying to send money to volunteers who've been with us for a while, who understand our world, and who should get first shot at this rare moment when we're spending money.
And let me just point out, so Jonathan is saying in chat that he's happy to stay on a volunteer. I like the idea of just saying, you know what, if you're on this project, you're getting paid. If you choose to donate some or all of that money back to the e-NABLE fund, that is entirely your option. But I think we pay everyone, for their time and just consider this a funded project.
Gary's hand is up.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how would you pay those people? How are the laws in the States that allows you to pay individuals for work like that? Because if I had to do that in France, I don't know how I would do it really.
We use Open Collective for that, Thierry. We basically, once a project has been approved, which is voted on by the community, then Evan Blackman administers the Open Collective site. Anyone can submit an invoice. It gets approved by typically me. Evan then sends money to that person.
Now, John, if any one individual gets $600 or more in a year, we owe them a 1099. Is that being handled somehow?
Evan has done 1099s, and I think he would be up to the task.
Okay.
Don't you have to pay taxes on that, guys?
Yeah,
No.
that's what the 1099 is for. So when you're working as a contractor, the person receiving the funds is responsible for paying taxes on that at the end of the year. We don't take the taxes out because they're not an employee. They're being paid as a contractor.
That was my
Yep.
question.
Yeah. Which to be fair, that, we have to keep that in mind. If we're paying a $25 an hour rate, which is already well below the market rate for this kind of work, and then taxes come out on top of that, we could also think about, an adjusted rate too. I'm up for anything. I mean, again, I think right now we're talking about a potential $10,000 budget, which if we could get everything that we have outlined for phase one done and get a good working website and matching platform up, I think that would be a steal. So personally, I'd be comfortable having a somewhat, higher budget, maybe, and looking at a $30 an hour rate or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm more concerned that we monitor it to see that every $30 tends to bring in at least $30 worth of value.
Agreed. Well, so what happens if we look at this as a $30 an hour rate? I don't think I think if we do hire contractors off of, a contracting service, I do think a 25 an hour rate is okay for them. So why don't we say 200 hours at 30, 6,000, plus 200 hours at 25, which is 5,000. So that would give us an $11,000 budget, which I think is quite reasonable.
So Morgan, you become the linchpin here. Does all of this make sense to you?
Yeah, no, this is making sense. I do want to, there's a few more questions I have because, in order to quote unquote hire people as the contractors, I want to be able to have all this information to show them.
Absolutely.
So also the other thing is I'm going to be putting in some work for getting this project laid out in some type of software. Ideally I'll find a free software, But
Well,
if,
it's funny you mentioned that, Morgan. We were talking about this in the last meeting. We did set up a paid
oh,
Trello account
woohoo,
for
okay.
e-NABLE,
Cool.
which we have not made good use of. It's just sitting there. So if you could put it to use, that would be great.
Yeah, I got it. I just don't know if I'll get a roadmap, but I don't know if Trello has the road mapping feature, but I can make that on anything else. The other thing is, John, you mentioned the return, the one-to-one return. So that'll come into an ROI chart, the return on investment. And I can make that with each of the features, and that helps prioritize effort versus return. And
Good.
from there, I just grab, which feature I think we should do first in order to get the most profitable return and the lowest effort.
Now, having said that, Morgan, this is not a government contracting job. We are reasonable people with a lot of faith in our people. So don't add a whole bunch of institutional bureaucracy. Just realize that you are responsible to the community to make sure that their money is well spent. We're responsible to Arrow to make sure their money is well spent, and we should all be able to confirm that or make adjustments if things go awry.
Yep. So
I will spend the next like week and a half organizing everything while it gets it, because we're still waiting on this to be fully approved by the
Well, yeah,
community.
so let's talk about that as far as next steps here. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, that everyone here is fairly comfortable with what we've laid out here. And so the next step is to get community input. So the way this works, I don't know if you've been through the Lumio proposal process before, Morgan, but we use Lumio, and our policy is that we have to put it up for discussion for a period of a week first, and let people just read and comment on what we're thinking. We can make any adjustments we want based on that discussion. Then we set it to a vote, and that vote has to run for 10 days.
Okay.
And we can make further changes if needed, just not within the last 48 hours of the voting process. So that's the general process. So our next step would be to put this up for discussion.
Okay. So we're looking about 2.5, 3 weeks until like go time.
Correct.
In the meantime, do you want me to be setting up, the Trello, all that stuff, or should I wait until we get final approval on this?
Morgan,
I would say anything, yeah, anything that we can do to get a head start. I feel pretty confident that this will be approved. I mean, we certainly have the money, and there's no question it's something that we need. Other efforts depend upon it. So I don't think there's much of a question or risk of it not getting approved. So I would say yes, just track your time, because that's time that should be logged against the project,
Um,
which is something else to think about. How do you want to track time? I don't know. It could be a spreadsheet, something, but have some kind of a time tracking mechanism for all the team members.
and again, we are, I think, so confident that this larger project will be approved that, as Jeremy says, the clock can start. And frankly, if you need to be paid during this interim period, we can arrange to do that with our discretionary power for up to $1,000.
Yeah.
okay.
So I would say, yeah, work on getting the Trello board set up. I would say definitely coordinate a meeting with the key volunteers. Please include me in that. In fact, I'll put myself here as, I don't know, advisor.
Okay.
Advisory support, or whatever I can do, but I'll be less, involved in terms of number of hours, but I'd love to be part of those initial discussions for planning and whatnot. So maybe coordinate a meeting with all the, interested parties to start detailing out like who wants to do what, or who's got time to do what. And that'll then feed into your planning on the Trello board and that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can get that stuff done. So with the Trello board.
I guess maybe what I should do is set up a new board for this project
I got
and
it.
then invite you. Doesn't it need to be in our, because we've got a premium account set up for e-NABLE, so don't we want to set it up in that?
Yeah. Oh, then can you invite me to the Trello? And I might be invited. I don't know.
Jeremy, why don't you invite her to the whole workspace? That's up at
That's
the
what I'm
top
looking.
right.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Okay.
Others and
Um,
my workspace members.
You may be able to piggyback over some of the things that are already there. And I'll be right back.
Up on the right. It's blue. There it is.
So what's your email, Morgan?
Dot A.
Say again.
Morgan.a.Rollins, ROLLINS @gmail.com.
Right.
It's me.
Why is it looking to bill me another $100?
Mm,
You know
You'll-
what? Jason, do you think, I don't think Adam is doing anything with Trello. Do you think he'd mind if I replace him?
I don't think so. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm gonna have a separate conference call on in the background. I'm on double duty
No
here.
problem. Why don't I do this? Why don't I deactivate him and replace him with Morgan? Still looking to bill me. What the heck? All right, give me a minute to figure this out. I will get an invite out to you after the meeting. Morgan, let me just figure out why it's trying to bill me more. Oh, actually, you are in here, but as a guest. Not including your premium account, guests can only view and edit the boards to which they've been added. Well, that's okay, as long as I add you to the board.
This should be
All
fine.
right, so let's do that. Create a new board, enable website and matching platform.
Probably billing you because you want to add another admin.
Yeah, okay. So let's just create this and then let's see, share gmail.com. Share. Okay, see if that does it for you. And then you should be able to change whatever you want within that board. Let me know if if you run into any limitations.
Sounds good.
And then as far as getting this out on Lumio, it's really just a matter of copying and pasting this out there as a new discussion thread. Are you already set up on Lumio, Morgan?
I think so.
Okay. Let me just get you the link so that you have the right one. So if you go, I'm going to put this in chat for you here. Just go there, make sure you're signed in as you, and just click on new thread and just paste it all in there and let it run as a discussion. And then after a week is run, we can then turn on the voting, but I'd rather have it come from you than me as the project manager.
Oh.
So go ahead and get that going so we can get the clock ticking on that. Okay. Well, that's great. So we got a good start on the primary project here. I'm just going to update this to say that we're looking at an $11,000 budget for that. I think we already identified a $12,000 budget for the outreach coordinator, which Madison already has up and running as a discussion. Sarah, do you know if that has been switched on to voting yet?
No, I don't think so. I know that Madison wanted to update it first based on
Oh, okay.
feedback that she's received from the community.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm seeing here. I see some good comments. And so, okay, she's going to make some updates. It looks like it was updated last on the 8th. So yeah, it has not been updated since the 8th. So we'll wait for her to make some updates and then we can turn on voting. I don't know if you're in contact with her, Sarah, but let me know if she needs any help getting
Yeah,
the.
I'm in contact and I told her to let me know if she needs help because I mean um I know that she can do it. I have never edited a proposal within Lumio, so if there is a technical challenge with that, I volunteered to help her figure it out, but I don't
Sure.
I have not done that. So yeah.
Got it.
If there's something that I should know or that she should know.
Looks like
I
they've
just
changed these
requested to
options here.
I just requested to join the Lumio.
Okay,
Right.
I'll take care of that. John, it looks like there's all sorts of new options here. I don't even
Yes,
understand how some of these work.
evolved.
Okay.
Um,
We'll have to look at whether that changes anything with regards to our process, I guess.
I don't think it does. I think the old simple vote is still available and
Me. Do you know so for your guys' Slack, can anyone join or do you need a license?
Yes.
I want to get the contractors and anyone working on this project on a Slack group because personally Slack is a lot easier for me, but
Me too. Yeah.
Just
Yeah, we already have the e-NABLE, group there in Slack. I'd say just maybe set up a channel, within there for the project. That might be easiest.
I'll do that during the meeting.
Great.
Ena- So I'm posting it now, enable web redesign.
Excellent. So let's see. Posted in Lumio for discussion. This one is also posted in Lumio for discussion. On April, I think, was it 5th that she posted hers? I don't remember.
Do you want any tags or anything?
I don't think we really use tags much. It'll just pop up. You will get an option towards the end of notifying members of Lumio. You want to do that. You want to notify everybody. Created on April 3rd.
Start thread.
19th. Okay.
All right, I posted it. It didn't give me an option for notifying though.
Maybe that's only when it goes to voting. Do you not have the option to notify for discussion, John?
I have notificate now. Yeah, I don't have that. I did a new thread in
Oh, it
e-NABLE.
says notified 214. So it did.
Yeah, it didn't give me little check marks or anything. I
Weird.
guess it does it now.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Sarah, let me suggest that it would be a good moment to post in the hub that there are 2 proposals under discussion en route to voting, and begin getting people paying attention to Lumio again. And provide links to the 2. Is she still with us? Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm muted.
That's
Can you
okay.
drop the links in the chat and I can make a hub post?
All right. Well, are you talking about the one for both of the discussions? Are those the links you want?
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so e-NABLE website. Oh, we're calling it web redesign proposal. There's that link. And the other one is e-NABLE DC outreach proposal 2024. There you go. Okay. I think that's a really good, place to pause for today. So we've made really good progress on these, I think. Does anybody else have anything that you think we need to talk about today? Otherwise, I would propose that we, at least for now, I think we should keep these going. I would propose that we meet again in 2 weeks for those who are able to.
Right. I'll get a meeting poll out today for all of the website people.
Terrific. And that way we can report an update on how that went.
Yeah.
Jeremy and I are gonna do a little Zoom fiddling next.
Yep.
But you want to do it not on this channel. You want to do it. Okay.
I'm going to give you a new link.
I'd like to have just a private touch base with Morgan, given her change of status. I wonder if I can invite everyone but Morgan and Jeremy to leave for a moment so that we can round this off with a private conversation. And I'm going to end the
Yeah. Let me end the recording.